Did you hear that did you see that Macallan has an 81-year-old?
I saw that today.
Fuck me, man.
I know, right?
We're going to be invited to that tasting, right?
Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whiskey in the Six. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whisky Rant Podcast.
So I'm a little crusty,
It's frustrating.
and it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whisky Rant Podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
And today we're talking independent bottlers. With the whiskey market the way it is, the secondary market the way it is the independent bottle market still the best value for Scotch whiskey and other whiskeys?
You know, one of our friends, our common friends, James Bourne, who helped me get this bottle right here, which is the Gordon MacPhail Klein Leash.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks that's pretty much it. Like, based on the market and value and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
he thinks that independent bottlers are going to be doing really well in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, you see what these whiskeys are going for secondary, and even just like the availability of stuff. Like, let's take what we always talk about as Springbank, right? Prices trickling up.
Yep.
Demand through the roof.
Yep.
Availability very scarce.
Yep.
You can go into the independent bottle market, and we've talked about it before. You can find distilleries that you really like, and people are bottling this stuff the way that we want it, at cask strength, non-chill filtered, no added color. A lot of times you're getting single cask, which are a little bit vary from the characteristic distillery. This makes it really interesting.
And the smaller the company, the more of a chance, in my opinion, that they're not going to just like buy up a shitty barrel. You know what I mean? Like, if it's you and I starting up an independent bottler tomorrow, we only have set amount of cash flow to like buy this barrel. We're not gonna buy a barrel that's crap. You know what I mean? You're not gonna buy it just to bottle it. You're gonna buy something that you're putting your name on it.
Yeah, and especially if you're just entering the market, you got to make a name for yourself,
Exactly.
And you got to start out with a bang. I mean, we can talk about some independent bottlers that seem to have watered down their name.
Mm-hmm.
SMWS comes to mind a little bit.
SMWS is a big one that
And we'll talk about that.
Moved away from.
But let's say someone's watching this for the very first time. They don't even know what an independent bottler is. What is an independent bottler in the Scotch whiskey world?
An independent bottler is basically Rob and Jeremy decide they're going to open up a company, buy casks or barrels from various distilleries, bring them home and bottle them themselves, or get them bottled, whatever, with their own label. Example, Dramore right here is one of the two whiskeys we are drinking tonight. Mm-hmm. Actually, they're both Dramore. One is a Ben Nevis, one is an Inchfad. Two different distilleries, same independent bottler, thus same label, meaning the same company decided to buy two different barrels from two different distilleries and bottle it as their own, just giving credit to the name, but essentially selling their own whiskey.
Sure. Yeah, and I think a lot of times companies will get their own barrels too, and they'll just buy just the distillate from the distillery. They'll barrel it themselves, they'll age it themselves, and they'll bottle it themselves.
Yeah.
And it happens in the American spirits world as well.
Yep.
We have a couple of examples on the table.
Yeah, so we got the barrel bourbon here, this one is the Seagrass, which is a rye, but they have a plethora of different selections coming out of barrel.
Yeah, and they do a really good job of doing finishes and stuff like that too. So they're buying distillate from different American distilleries, some Canadian distilleries actually. There's some Canadian whiskey in there, isn't there?
In this, there might be in this one. It does.
Yeah, so they're buying spirit, they're aging it in their own warehouse, they're blending it different ways, and then they're bottling it themselves.
That's right. And then your buddy over here.
Yeah, Smoke Wagon. So they kind of made a name for themselves recently. They're sourcing stuff from Indiana, MGP, which is one of the biggest suppliers of American spirits to different independent bottlers in the U.S.
Yep.
And they made a big name for themselves because they're bottling really good stuff too, and they're aging it in their own warehouses and bottling stuff in batches at barrel strength, and made a lot of waves in the bourbon community as well.
Now, in the American market, it does get a little hazy because there are distilleries that are doing the exact same thing, right? Like Michter's is an example of a distillery that buys, for the longest time was bottling MGP, and now they're making their own stuff, but they're not quite mature enough to be putting out a 10-year-old, let's say, of their own product or that kind of stuff. So it's especially in the States a way of starting off without having to wait for maturation of your own product.
Sure, a lot of distilleries do that, right? Like Willet is another example that they've distilled their own stuff, but their older stuff is sourced because they don't even have maturations of whiskeys that are that old yet.
And some of these companies made their name off of these incredible whiskeys that they source, like
Absolutely.
Willet, for example, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, Gordon MacPhail is one of the ones that you mentioned earlier, which would buy their own barrels, buy their own casks, source their own sherry butts, their own kind of stuff, and then put other companies' distillate in that.
Yeah, they would.
They're the oldest, the most successful, probably the largest, most recognizable name in one of them in Scotch as a whole, but definitely in the independent game.
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest Scotch whiskey independent bottlers. On the table tonight, we have the Connoisseur's Choice Klein Leash, which is matured in a sherry butt.
Yeah.
Beside it, we have one of the older Kalilas of Gordon MacPhail in their cask strength series. This is really one that you and I gravitated towards too, because I think that we agree, and a lot of people also mentioned that Kalila is really bottled really nicely in the independent bottling market, versus like their core range of available whiskeys, and we love that stuff.
We went through a little Kalila phase,
Yeah.
where we were buying up a lot of Kalila independent.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Fantastic.
Beside that, one of the unicorns in my collection, a 1974 distillate, Connoisseur's Choice Ardbeg at 22 years old. This one I traded for a long time ago.
Yeah.
I traded a George T. Stagg when George T. Stagg was going for about $500 US or so back in the day when it wasn't as crazy as it is now, which is about double that.
Yeah.
But yeah, really interesting. I really wanted to try it because people talk about 1970s Ardbeg distillers being, that magical kind of time in that distillery. Well, let's talk about these two that we're trying tonight. This,
so sourced from Malton Grains in Alberta, formerly known as AABC, or ABC as people would call them, from Alberta. My buddy Rishu sent these to me. I purchased them from him. This Ben Nevis over here is 8 years old, 53%. And it's finished in first fill white port casks.
Yeah, that's really interesting. White port. I don't believe I've had any whiskey finished in a white port cask. I don't think I've even tried white port before.
Yeah.
But it gives it this really interesting floral and like potpourri note to it.
Yeah.
We were saying before, it's almost kind of like what we would know as like an ice wine cask finish.
Yeah, it's very similar to like some of the single malt ice wine casks that we've had from, like you were saying earlier, Glen Breton
Distillery,
Glenora, it reminds me a lot. Back in the day, I did a 12-year-old, I believe it was 12 years old, Glen Breton that was finished in ice wine casks, and it reminds me a lot of that. I would say that this one is a little bit more malty.
Yeah.
Got a little bit more yeast in this one, like that smell of the yeast, bready.
Yeah, and like this is a really cool thing about the independent bottlers is that you're getting a Ben Nevis, which you might not find in a white port cask.
Yeah.
In official bottling, right?
Ben Nevis is hard to come by as a like actual distillery bottling.
Yeah.
Like an OB, they're not easy to come by. So when you do see Ben Nevis, it's usually in an independent bottler, and I don't know if that has to do with the fact that they're owned by Nika, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I wonder if it has anything.
Or the company that owns Nika.
Or the company that owns Nika.
Yeah, because you find Ben Nevis sneaking its way into these, quote unquote Japanese whiskeys nowadays.
That's right. Yeah.
When really they're bringing in Ben Nevis casks into Japan, blending it with their stuff, and selling it.
I really like that. I'm pleasantly surprised by this 8-year-old here.
Yeah, that's good.
I think I got it low hundreds for sure. So.
Yeah, and both of these are obviously natural cask strength, not chill filtered, no added color.
No added color. Yeah.
Like you would find in majority of independent bottling expressions.
What's the ABV of the Inchfad?
Also 53.
That's 53. It says it on the dot?
Yeah, so it does say cask strength, but it also
No,
says...
I think we got the boxes mixed up here. Because that one says 54.7. Is that... Check that bottle. Because this one says 53 on the back. And it might not actually.
You're right, 54.7 for the Inchfad.
Yeah. Which, for it to be 53 on the dot is rare, right?
Yeah.
So... Yeah, the Inchfad is interesting.
Yeah, so it definitely has a little bit of peat on it. Inchfad is a distillery that I'm not familiar with at all. It's a Highland.
Mm-hmm.
This is 14 years old. To me, I really get that like Isla style kind of peat note on the nose anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned before we were on camera. Well, I'll let you say it. That note that you pick up on a lot of these.
Yeah, so I get like that dinner mint, that Crest toothpaste kind of mineral kind of note as well.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like that Balchin mixed with some sort of like Lefroy kind of peat. Like it's not quite one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not quite barbecuey. It's not quite like super iodine-y. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know where if they're like smoking their own peat, or sorry, their own barley,
yeah,
and what kind of peat they're using, because it does have that very Isla kind of feel to it.
Yeah. This would definitely, I think, be blind guessed as an Isla, in my opinion.
Or have they matured this in an Isla cask? Does it say the maturation on here?
It just says the finish, which is first fill PX.
First fill PX. Okay.
Yeah.
That could be maybe a factor as well. Maybe it's an Isla cask.
Yeah,
perhaps.
true. Like originally an Isla cask, then because now that you mention that, it kind of reminds me of some of like the Canadian single malts that use an Isla cask too. It does have that kind of note too.
Right.
So it could be.
Yeah. But yeah, both really good expressions. Do you remember what these go for, price wise?
I believe the Inchfad is around 140-ish, all in taxes. Mm-hmm. And I believe this one's around 120-ish.
Okay, so we're talking
Let's
Canadian. We're talking Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
So like 14-year-old cask strength. That's pretty well priced.
Yeah, I would
considering
think so.
If you're looking at something official bottling. I don't know if I've really seen that many Inchfads around, and they mostly probably use their distillate for blends.
Yeah.
Sources. I don't know that much.
I don't know too much. I think it's mostly in the independent and like you said, blends probably. So the Ben Nevis is currently $129.90 all in, so that's taxes included. And this one is $149.63 taxes included.
Right.
So I mean, what are you getting in Ontario for those prices? That's cask strength, unchill filtered, noir color from Scotland.
Yeah, not very much, if anything.
I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right, cask strength for sure, not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's. Although the LCBO gets their one-offs, like they got the Lefroy Cartridge cask strength that was, but then again that's no age statement, but still low hundreds, right?
Yeah.
They get their one-offs, but
while we're on the topic of LCBO, we should rant a little bit about a release that just came out. Mm-hmm. One that we both hunted down and got very lucky with was the Blue Spot Irish Whiskey, Milton Distillery.
Gong show. What an absolute joke.
We're going to have to bring up the LCBO sucks ticker here because it needs to freaking get a couple ticks on it. We'll decide how many.
What were we at last?
I don't remember. But it's
whatever it was, it's going to be multiplied.
Okay, so this is what happened. So the LCBO, obviously you guys know, the way they roll out whiskey is terrible. Yeah. They don't have anyone, we've said it before, they don't have anyone on the pulse that knows whiskey, that knows that when Blue Spot Irish Whiskey comes out, it's going to be a mad scramble to get it. It was very well priced at 99 Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
Which for American friends, that's about what, like $80 US?
Yeah.
Something like that, around that?
Ish. So
less money than it goes for in the US, because
Yeah.
I've heard people pay about 90 to 100 US per bottle for that.
I've heard it go as high as like some shops have it for over $300 American.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
insane.
absurd. Yeah.
So the LCBO, you can go online, you can check out their inventory, it's all listed. So these started hitting stores, and people saw them pop up. And it was about 2 cases per store throughout the Greater Toronto area, with no real rhyme or reason of like where it was coming, how many people were getting what, if it was one per customer, if it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's just a typical LCBO blunder.
Yeah.
Because they don't know that this whiskey is very sought after. So it was coming up, you know, guys would check the inventory, they'd see a store get a couple things, and they would rush out to get it.
That's right.
I personally woke up one morning about 5 minutes too late.
Yeah.
Rushed out to Summerhill, which is the big store here in Toronto. Actually, you know what? Now it's the second biggest store because they just opened up one downtown.
That's right.
And was about a minute or two late, and all 12 bottles sold. Luckily, later on that day, I kept refreshing the page and saw that another store at downtown had a case and got there to buy the second last bottle that they had.
Wow, second last.
So it was insane. Like, people were going crazy. Good thing that most stores were doing one per customer. I know one store didn't, and someone cleared it out. But that's just the way it is nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you can clear it out, someone's going to.
Of course, because it was well priced, so it was $100.
Yeah. So you're just giving people free money essentially
right.
at that point.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if majority of that ends up on secondary. It looks like they're already going for over 200, over double on secondary. Just a complete joke of the way they distributed that. It made zero sense. Like it just, I'm still trying to fathom what happened because they had around 300 bottles total. So around 300 bottles total. In the right way to do it is one per customer, online only.
Yeah.
Give all of Ontario a chance to buy this.
Yeah, see, if you're not in the Toronto area, no shot at getting this. Maybe Ottawa gets some.
Yeah,
I'm not
Ottawa
sure.
got a few cases.
Okay.
Yeah, Ottawa got a few cases. Like Hamilton area got a couple cases, or that part of. But it's not. We're talking like if you're outside of an hour of the GTA. You better be in Ottawa.
Yeah, like my hometown of London, Ontario, they don't see anything. I don't know if Windsor or Sarnia see any of this stuff. I doubt it.
I think Windsor got a case.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Windsor got a case. It's just the way it was done. It was completely unfair, and like, it's just stupid. It was just stupid management, and it's to the point where they would save money by paying you and I $250,000 a year, and I'm not. I thought this number through.
Yeah.
They would save, like probably hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, like if not more, because you and I have our finger on the pulse. We would be buying exactly what we know will sell constantly.
Yeah.
We would you have to like appease certain companies by buying their trash in order to get whatever. Whenever that kind of situation happens, we make little bundles and say, hey, you want that Blue Spot 7, you gotta buy Redbreast at 40%.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just to blow it out. You know what I mean? And that's stuff that's readily available and people just walk past.
Yeah.
But the amount of money the LCBO would make because of us trumps whatever salary they end up giving us. Like I'm confident that they could pay us up to $500,000 a year each and still make boatloads of money.
Because like these store managers of different LCBOs, they have to absolutely hate when this happens because they're getting hundreds of phone calls a day being like, you have this, can you put one aside? Can you I'm coming right down, blah, blah, blah. It's like when they get a case of Weller 107, they're probably like, oh shit. This sucks. We're gonna get people lining up. We're gonna get fucking people heckling.
These are people with families that really, at the end of the day, they don't give a shit about whiskey, and rightly so. That's not why they're there. This is their job. You know what I mean? Like it's their 9 to 5. They do their job. They go home. They shouldn't have to worry about a homie from Rexdale being upset because I'm talking about myself here because I'm from Rexdale. Being upset because that store didn't get anything. You know what I mean? It's not fair to that guy. Yeah. And it is what it is. And honestly, I really do believe that they would make whatever their profit margin is now, in the whiskey category, we could double it within a year, and they could pay us absurd amounts of money, and they would still double that profit margin. I honestly believe that, because I just feel like they're leaving it up to people that just don't know better, and it's not their fault. They're not being trained. They're not hobbyists this is not their hobby. They have a job. It's a government job, and it's a decent paying job, and it has benefits and whatever else, and good for them. But the LCBO could be making so much more money.
I don't know if this happens in the wine aspect of it. Like, I'm not plugged into the wine world.
Same.
I know a lot of people are, and they would know for sure. But like, I'm assuming that it does, because I'm sure the LCBO is a huge buyer of wines, and I'm sure there's very, very rare stuff that comes into the vintage selections that people are in the exact same situation with.
Absolutely.
Right? They're running out, trying to buy it, they're trying to flip it.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm really liking this Ben Nevis a lot.
It is good. Wait, we have to say, how many LCBO sucks points are we throwing up on the ticker?
I told you we have to multiply it. We have to multiply it. So the question is, what are we multiplying it by? Because it's a stupid amount.
I think it should get like 50 points.
Total?
Yeah. Let's crank it up.
Yeah.
Because this is an ongoing thing.
Yeah. I think it's just pure stupidity on their part. And I really do feel for the people that are working. Put it this way. Our buddy, friend of the show, Paulo, called Hello LCBO probably about 6 days straight. I witnessed this. On our lunch hour, 6 days straight. He got a different answer each time he called.
Absolutely.
The questions were, how many bottles of Blue Spot will there be?
Yeah.
Which stores will be getting them? Will it be online? Every single time he called, it was a completely different answer. And then finally, someone knew their shit and was like, oh, you know what? I got to go into a different program for this. Give me a sec.
Right.
So went into the different program. There's exactly this amount of bottles. It's going to be popping up on various stores. I can tell you that it might pop up at this store because I know that they put in an order for it. A lot of the stores that put in orders for it are not getting it.
Right.
She knew her shit.
Yeah.
Who the hell were the 5 people before her that didn't know a single thing about, like, who are they putting in this seat?
It's I don't know what they're looking at on their computer screen, but like, some people can see more information than others. It makes no sense.
It can't be that. It can't like, I mean, is it literally just because these are disgruntled workers that just don't give a shit and be like, what do I say to this guy to get him off the phone as fast as possible?
I know some people that work at the LCBO, and they're awesome people, but at the end of the day, they're government employees.
Yeah.
And
they're mistreated.
They're mistreated, and they don't really care that much. I mean, what's going to happen to them?
Nor should they. Why should they? Why should they sweat more for a company that doesn't give them much room to move up, doesn't pay them to be trained properly, and then they're left dealing with the heat from all these disgruntled customers because head office just completely botched the whole situation. It's crazy.
Yeah. LCBO opened up brand new flagship store right on the harbor front, Cooper Street area.
I heard about
this.
that.
This is their massive new headquarters. I'll head down there sometime and do a video of the store.
What would you leave your job for right now if they said, hey, come take over this store, we want you to head our whiskey program?
Oh yeah, I'd do it.
No, what's the price tag?
Like, how much would they pay me?
How much would you need to do it?
I mean, I wouldn't need that much.
No?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I know they pay a serious amount of money to their employee. Like, even just a regular LCBO employee that just essentially working a retail job, right?
Yeah.
They get, how much do they get paid? $85,000 a year?
Is it that much?
Yeah.
That's absurd.
They get paid crazy. Like, I don't know if that's what you start at, but I know a lot of people make like,
okay, like if you're permanent and you've been there for many years or whatever, that's a lot of money.
You make crazy money for doing a retail job. You get all the benefits.
Yeah.
You get all the good, all the good benefits.
I think the problem is, and a lot of the LCBO workers will attest to this, is that like it takes forever to get permanent there. So like they just keep you as part-time because they know that they don't have to give you the benefits, they don't have to, or even if they do, it's temporary. Like they don't have to give you pay increases as much.
That's like every corporation though.
You're right. Yeah, that's true.
That's like every corporation.
But I mean,
why would I pay someone full time and give them full benefits when I can just hire 2 people?
That's right.
And pay them less.
Yep.
Than
and
one full timer.
That's true, and I think that's what they're doing. To be honest with you, but I've met a few guys from the LCBO that are making probably 150 plus.
Yeah, I think the managers make a serious amount of money.
So it is what it is. I don't care about. Listen, I don't want anybody to lose $1 from their pay. Mm-hmm. That's not what this is about. This is about
just be smarter about your thing, and it's going to save you.
It comes from the top, though.
It's going to save you headaches, and it's going to
100%.
save all these store managers. Have got to be just blowing their heads off with this stuff.
Absolutely, it comes from the top. It comes from the high ups that need to know better, and that's it. Like you need to know better. Yeah, you got a cushy job. Fine, earn it at least a little bit. Do the right thing. Right. Make sure that when these rare bottles come in, you're on top of it. You know what's coming in and out. Have somebody that actually cares with their finger on the pulse. The interview to get a high-end whiskey job in the LCBO should be, okay, let me hear what your bar looks like. I want to know what your bar looks like right now. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Tell me about your favorite distillery and why it's your favorite distillery. Sure. I should write these stupid questions. Honestly, I think they would do way better. And then,
This is our resume right here, LCBO. You need to get us on board.
I really believe that I gotta stop giving away all my great ideas because I give away money constantly. Just give people ideas.
Nobody's listening. No one's listening.
And then all of a sudden, these random bottles are being dropped at exactly what I asked for from various distilleries. It's like, what?
Speaking about a bottle drop, Macallan freaking shocking the world today
with the one-up.
One-upping Gordon MacPhail and Glenlivet with an 81-year-old expression. Did you see this freaking decanter they freaking came out with? We'll throw it up on the screen right here.
Yeah.
Pretty epic. Yeah. Do you think the LCBO is getting a bottle of that? They might get one or
they'll
two.
Get one.
Right?
They'll get one.
Yeah.
There's only, 200 bottles?
Yeah, something around there.
I
think it came
What are they charging for that bottle?
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's less than you would probably think. I think it's £96,000.
I would pay that. You know what? I would take out a line of credit and pay that.
Yeah.
And the reason for this is, and I wouldn't drink it obviously because I couldn't. I'm not taking away from my kids' future because I decide to crack open a $200,000 bottle. But that bottle, the moment it sells out, which will be very fast, is going to be worth close to $1 million.
Yeah, see, I was going to ask you about this and what you kind of thought that it would go for on secondary. Because if you take a look at Macallan and you take a look at recent auction bottles that have gone for epic money.
Right.
You look at the 1926 Macallan Fine and Rare, which notoriously sold for the craziest, the highest auction price ever, which was, I think, £1.4 million in 2019. More recently, that same bottle sold for £1 million. So someone lost about £500,000 of value.
Yeah.
Are these hedge funds losing money yet? I mean, it seems like they're buying at crazy prices. Is it going to keep going up?
I wonder. Okay, so
I want the hedge funds to fucking crash.
You know what? It's funny because I compare it to the housing market in Ontario. It's not far off. It's not far off. If you look at the way a bottle appreciates now, it's in some areas, okay, I've witnessed in 6 months between a $400,000 to $600,000 increase in Ontario. How does that happen?
Yeah.
So we're talking about housing right now, obviously. So if it translates though to what's happening in whiskey. Look at the Springbank 10-year-old local barley. That's got to be the fastest skyrocketing bottle I've ever seen in my life, because it retailed for roughly $200 Canadian, and a good friend of ours is selling them on secondary for $1,400 Canadian.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
I mean, it sounds absurd, but you look at the bourbon secondary and it's just as crazy.
Yeah, that's always been crazy. The Pappy and BTAC has always been what it is.
Yeah.
and it's getting even more insane.
Yeah, so this Macallan, I mean, you got to figure that it's going to be going for crazy secondary value. I don't know. Like, if you look at the last, like, super age-stated Macallan that came out, the 72-year-old Lalique, right?
Yeah.
So that one, you can find that at auction for, you know, a very reasonable 60,000 pounds,
Really?
65,000 pounds. Yeah, it's like,
That's not that bad.
It's not too crazy.
So yeah, because originally it went for what, $70,000, right? It was like $70,000 or $80,000.
So is it lost
Canadian.
money? Well, I'll throw it up here just to be sure that I'm saying that right.
Well, if it's 60,000 pounds, you're looking at close to double, so call it 110. So they've still made 40 grand on their bottle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 40, 50 grand on their bottle. So, I mean, I'm sure if they went to flip it, they're not complaining about 40 grand on a bottle investment. You know what I mean?
But it is interesting that Fine and Rare 1926 did sell for about 500,000 pounds less more recently, 2 years later than...
That's gotta hurt.
Right?
That's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
That's gotta hurt. But whoever bought that first one was absurd. They're insane. Nobody's spending $1 million on a bottle for. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's crazy talk.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like 1.9 million US dollars.
Yeah.
And you've lost, you know, 600,000 US on that.
That's a bad market day.
Yikes.
But
Hedge fund won't be happy with that one.
No. The difference is you don't, like, why let it happen though? You know what I mean? Well, like, I mean, I guess in their eyes, what they bought that bottle for versus what they sold it for are two different things.
Yeah, so that was a very like interesting cast. You can read up the history of that Fine and Rare 1926 because I think some of the bottles, I think they split up that cast into like some very like rare kind of like let's get an artist to do the bottle, and then the rest of it came out as the regular Fine and Rare label. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I wonder if anyone's even opened that bottle, any of those bottles, maybe for a charity thing.
I doubt it. And this was what I was gonna say. The onus is on Macallan when this bottle comes out officially to open a few to give to people that are buying the bottle because you can't expect them to open that bottle.
Yeah, so let's throw out Cam. He is the Macallan rep for Ontario. Yeah, if you got some spots open for a Macallan 81-year-old tasting, we have experience tasting very old whiskey. We know how to do it.
That is true. I don't know if we're getting that phone call, to be honest with you, but yeah, it would be cool, but I don't see it happening. We still have yet to try the Macallan M. Or I have yet to try the Macallan M.
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
Yes.
Well, you tried it at Rohit's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
tried it.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's the
number 6.
The number 6,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the Reflections.
Right.
So I've yet to try, I think, any of those 3. Did I try the Reflections? I can't remember. I'm gonna say no. If I can't remember, it's probably no.
You know what? Those you could buy tickets to tastings that included those bottles.
Yeah, I've never actively sought it out because
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I was never gonna buy that bottle. And really, at the end of the day, if anything is going for that kind of money, I believe it should be cask strength.
Yeah. Well, Macallan, you know.
And I think they're 81-year-old.
Strength.
Their 81-year-old's got to be cask strength.
I think so. I think it's 42 or 43% or something.
Yeah. So, back to these whiskeys a little bit. I'm getting a ton of butterscotch on the Ben Nevis. Like a lot of butterscotch. Like that old school granny, like out of her
Werther's
pocket.
Original kind of
like
stuff?
Not even like predating Werther's.
Oh yeah,
like,
okay. Like the
like
square,
the really
square
hard-
cubes.
Yeah,
Those butterscotch.
Those
cubes?
are good. Those
Yeah.
like the caramel or whatever they're
Right,
called.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
not caramel. That's the chocolate bar.
Right.
Those, I know which ones you're talking about, but not those ones. I'm talking like the hard candy, like butterscotch, but like rounded.
Yeah, I'm really liking both of these whiskeys, and they're different than scotches that you drink every day, and
Yeah.
it's nice, refreshing, interesting stuff. I know Toronto Whiskey Society is doing their like oddball tasting, which I think they do once a year, whereas it just is these weird independent bottles, right?
Yeah.
They're just like kind of like different stuff that you've probably never had before in maturations that are like way different. And they're very interesting, and it's very good like educational wise for your palate.
Yeah.
To try like these weird kind of things,
Absolutely, it's important.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. If you want to call yourself a whiskey geek, you need to taste a lot of different types of whiskey, and that's it.
Do you want to throw a score on these?
I wouldn't mind. I mean, I think they deserve a score. I think honestly, the way I handle this kind of stuff is if it's lower than an 80, I won't score it. I just won't. I won't score it for the sake of the company that whatever. I bought these with my own money, but I still don't like trashing stuff. You know what I mean? I don't like and I don't think that scores in the 70s are trashing anything. Maybe it's like, I can't remember the number I originally saw.
Yeah, see, we talked about this again. If you score out of 100, something like, whoa, you scored in the 70s is really low. If you score out of 10, a 7 is a pretty good score.
It's not so bad,
right?
exactly. Yeah. What would you score the Ben Nevis?
So I think I like the Ben Nevis a little bit more. I think it's like probably in the mid to high 80s for me. I want to go maybe and throw like an 86, 87 on it. I think 87. I think it's pretty solid whiskey.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 88 on the Ben Nevis.
Yeah.
I really like it as well. I just think these are neck pours. I think
that's a good point too.
Right?
We just cracked these.
Yeah, I think it's gonna get even better, and I really like. And there's like literally nothing off-putting about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's 8 years old. It doesn't drink 8 years old. It drinks a little bit older.
For sure, it does.
It's 53%. Again, I wouldn't say I need water or it doesn't have like too much heat or anything like that.
Not at all.
It's sweet, it's malty, it's got all kinds of like different things going on. I like it a lot. I think it's an 88. To be honest, I prefer it over the Inchfad, but I actually really like the Inchfad as well.
Yeah, so do I. And I think that the maturation on the Ben Nevis, that white port, is very, very interesting.
It's cool. It's different.
It's really different.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Yeah.
Inchfad for me, I think that this one, I think is pretty solid whiskey too. I want to go 86 on this one as well. I think it's very good. I love that kind of like Isla spin on it.
Absolutely.
This is the very first Inchfad I've ever had.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm interested in trying more from their distillery.
Yeah, I'm going to go 87. I think I agree with you. It's probably drinking more like an 86 tonight, but I feel like even more so than the Ben Nevis, this one's going to completely get better.
Yeah.
Because you could just tell like there's certain things that like with a little bit of time open will really iron itself out.
I think that both of these have a great finish. The finish lasts very, very long on both of them, and I think that's obviously with the cask strength maturation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that they're very, very good. And this interesting independent bottler. I'm interested to see more stuff. It seems like they're bottling kind of cool stuff, so it's interesting to see what else they will come up with in the future.
Absolutely. My first impressions with both of these tonight is the first impression for both of us, and I would buy them again. I would probably, if I could buy this again, that one again, for that price, I think they're worth it.
Yeah, I think a cool thing to do with these independent bottlers, because they are kind of like shots in the dark, like what's an Inchfad, a lot of people haven't heard of that
Absolutely.
before, like a Ben Nevis and like a white port. Split them with someone.
Yeah.
Go in with the 2 guys, 3 guys, buy a couple bottles, and it's really interesting to try out. And I think that's the way to do independent bottlings, because
That's
a lot
what
of
we
times
used
they're
to do.
single cask, right? They're single cask, you don't really know.
Yeah.
And it's just whiskey that is different, and it's fun to try with people.
Yeah, I mean, we started talking about SMWS a little bit. We used to do that for SMWS.
Yeah.
We used to split bottles. We had some real gems, but then there was some like just too many letdowns. Too many letdowns. That the one Irish whiskey that we got that time was unbelievable.
Yes.
It was a Bushmill, I think, 15-year-old. Pastries and sweet treats. I'll never forget that
Really
one.
good Irish whiskey.
I'll never forget that one.
Yeah.
If anybody has a bottle of that unopened, let me know.
I mean, one good thing about the SMWS, what they did is they would give you the samples of stuff that was coming to your area. You could be able to try it before you bought, which I thought was great. I think for us, it just became like way too much. Like, there's like 8 samples a month to try to get through, and then, buying bottles. Like, it seemed like maybe 1 or 2 were worthwhile to purchase, and the rest were just pretty average whiskeys.
Yeah, I wonder what the business plan there is, because there's no way. Like, how many people are buying every single expression?
You can't.
You can't.
There's
like,
so much. There's
I know-
so much.
I know the Scotch 4 dummies love them, and they had a ton. And the Scotch test dummies love them and had a ton. But, like, there's only so much even those guys can drink.
Yeah, well, you look at Scott from Scotch Test Dummies, who has got a job as a brand ambassador
he's
for
with them,
SMWS now.
Yeah.
And he's doing his thing. And I think that, you know, if you want to split a subscription with someone, it's maybe still worthwhile. But for us, we just thought that we were just being saturated with too much average kind of stuff. And to know what casks are the gems, it's hard to get to know that and then buy it. Because it's just a single cask. How many bottles? There's like around 300, and then they sell out, and then you're left out.
I think we got to get Scotty on the channel, Scotty on the rant, and ask him to change our mind.
Yeah.
This is a new style rant where Scotty is gonna change our mind about SMWS.
Yeah,
and I'll give him the opportunity. I know he could do it. Out of anybody, I know
SMWS has amazing.
They
whiskeys.
have casks. They have casks. Yeah, for sure they do. For sure they do. But the right guidance and maybe a little bit less saturation. You know what I mean? Like pick and choose a little bit more. I don't think you need to put out 50 expressions a month. You know what I mean? Like
it seems like they just do too much.
Yeah. Right.
When you do too much, you know, you're not going to have every single one. It's not going to be great.
Yeah.
But as far as independent bottlers are concerned, I mean, they see our money a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've always loved Gordon MacPhail. Like I've yet to have a bad bottle from Gordon MacPhail.
They seem like they do very consistent bottlings.
They're just always
stuff,
great.
Right?
And they've done so well that they were able to buy Ben Romick. They own Ben Romick now
right.
as well.
Yeah, and they get a lot of casks from them too.
Yeah.
This one, which came into Kensington Wine Market, right?
Yep.
This is their selection because it has their name on the label. A 13-year-old Klein Leash, 2007 distillate, 56.5% ABV. But like 276 bottles, right? So that's it. And it's like you have to take a chance on it.
Yep. It's calculated risk with them though.
But we know from experience that Kensington Wine Market makes very good picks.
Yep.
They make very good barrel picks. They've been very consistent, and they've had some complete gems.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Yeah. Kensington Wine. Andrew doesn't miss, and he's got I think it's Evan or Ethan. Could be wrong, and don't hate me for it, but. He knows a lot about whiskey as well.
Yeah.
So Andrew surrounds himself with good whiskey people. He recently brought on Harmony, who I respected from another store, who's also really good as well. Like, we pump KWM, we pump their tires quite a bit.
Let's pump them one more time because I just saw they have a boutique whiskey company bottling of another Klein Leash. It looks like an ex-bourbon cask. That just came available, so if you're interested, it's not cheap. I want to say it's around 200 Canadian.
Yeah, they had a spring,
but
that I really wanted.
I know, like boutique wine company, or sorry, boutique whatever they're called. We've known them through Narby.
Yep.
To bottle some really epic stuff.
Yeah.
So.
They're another independent bottler that's
right.
We haven't done too many reviews on them though.
That's true.
Right?
I don't think I even own a single bottle from them.
We should probably split something in the near future.
They do really good stuff. I know like Adelphi does really epic stuff. Jasper's given us some samples of some really good Adelphi stuff.
Some really good Adelphis.
Very, very nice.
Yeah.
And Carnmore. That's another independent bottler that I've had some really epic stuff from as well.
I feel like what needs to happen next is a Whisky Rant independent bottler.
Was not this episode?
No, like the Whisky Rant is the independent bottler.
Oh, a Whisky Rant.
The independent bottler is called the Whisky Rant.
I see. We're bottling our own stuff.
Yes.
18-year-old.
What first?
Canadian, maybe.
I would say Canadian.
Let's go to.
I think we gotta call up two brewers and Shelter Point and see if we can get a cask of each.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the right way to do it.
I think we could sell some bottles to the people out there. Anybody be interested?
I think our palates are worth some trust.
I'm not going to put the Whisky Rant name or anything that's subpar, of course.
That's right. Of course not. Of course not. Big thank you to Rishu for sending me these two bottles. Again, I paid for them, but recommending them, kind of like saying, hey, these are not getting a lot of recognition, and this is what the LCBO lacks.
Yes.
An employee that knows his stuff and says, hey, try out these 2 independent bottles. I think you're gonna like them. I think they kind of fit your profile of what you're looking for.
Yeah, the LCBO, although they do bring in some picks here and there, they could do way more.
Yep.
Like 1,000 times more.
Absolutely.
And they should really have someone like, doing that. They could do it they could do one a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. And sell out instantly.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine the LCBO was like an industry leader in barrel picks. That they could be that if they wanted to.
They would put a lot of people out of business.
What do they care? They sell 1.8 million cases of Smirnoff vodka every year. So what's the difference?
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
That's it for me, man.
All right, well, that's it for us. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We much appreciate it. If you want to support this podcast, check out our Patreons. You can join for as little as $1 and get this podcast earlier than everyone else. And then we have lots of other tiers that are really good as well that you get samples from and all that. So
I think we should start a Whisky Rant independent bottler, either like GoFundMe or maybe not GoFundMe, but or like separate Patreon. Just meant to be for independent.
See, this guy is an entrepreneur. He is always thinking. Gears are always churning.
I think honestly, fan funded, and those who are subscribed or to that specific Patreon that are like it's got to be an equal amount.
Yeah.
An equal amount. This is the amount to come in. This is and we can only accept up to, let's say, 150 people because you never know how much barrel or bottles you get out of one cask, right? So hypothetically, it's like $25 to fund the Whiskey in the Six / Sipper Social Club, or better yet,
Sipping in the Six
or Whisky Rant independent bottler.
Yeah.
And they get first dibs on a bottle.
I mean, hey, if you're going to tell me that I can go around and sample a bunch of casks of whiskey and someone's going to bottle something and put our little name on their label, I'm all for it.
We're not bad guys.
Right? Other people do it?
Right?
Other people can do it?
I think it's important. I think that's the next step. All
right.
We got to show these guys what we're capable of.
Stay tuned. Maybe we'll see that coming.
That'd be nice.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Really much appreciated. Cheers.
Cheers.